Hello, my name is Michelle Elia. Today I'm going to work with all of you to teach you how to become rocket scientists. Well, I'm going to teach you a little bit about emergent literacy, but according to Louisa Moats, teaching reading is rocket science. So I'm going to teach you the skills that our young children need to learn from birth to age 5 to be propelled on a trajectory to reading success. Let's get started. Today, we are going to blast off to reading success in preschool. We'll learn about emergent literacy, the skills that will propel children to reading success. Are you ready to reach for the stars? Here are our objectives for this very, very short video. Number 1, we'll establish a common understanding of literacy from birth to kindergarten entry. Number 2, we'll identify components of emergent literacy and how they contribute to reading success. And finally, we will review instructional practices that ensure future literacy success. I'll embed these as we identify the components of emergent literacy in number 2. I have a quiz first. You can pause this video to discuss if you would like. In preschool, are we teaching very young children to read in the traditional sense of reading? In other words, opening a book, looking at those words, reading and decoding those words automatically, and then talking about it and understanding what they're reading. Pause the video now and discuss with your teammates. Welcome back. So hopefully in your discussion, a few of you said no. In preschool, we are not teaching children to read in the traditional sense. No, we are teaching the foundational skills that are going to lead to later reading. We are going to teach the emergent literacy and early literacy skills that propel students to become automatic and fluent readers later as they enter into conventional literacy. So what is emergent literacy then? Emergent literacy skills are those skills acquired before students become conventional readers. These are powerful language and literacy experiences, and students can learn them at home and in school. Although we know preschool is the best place to build these emergent literacy skills. You notice I made language big and bold. That's because the language brain is what becomes the reading brain, and language is the fuel that propels reading success. Unfortunately, reading difficulties can begin very early in life, which sets a trajectory for failure. By building these strong emergent literacy skills in early childhood education, we are preparing our children to soar. So how do we know what to teach young children? Luckily, the National Early Literacy Panel, a meta-analysis of so many different studies, and then later, the IES Practice Guide, The Effectiveness of Early Literacy Instruction, a summary of 20 years of research, shed a lot of light on how early literacy skills are developed in young children and what skills we need to teach. These include oral language. As I mentioned, language is fuel. Oral language includes both speaking and listening. Vocabulary, which in our preschool age is really oral language. We build their knowledge of the complex vocabulary in English, and then we teach them knowledge about the world. We connect this vocabulary to world knowledge by teaching them about the world around them, by bringing in science and social studies into our preschool classrooms, by teaching them how to be kind to each other, by teaching them skills that they'll need to be very successful later. We teach the letters of the alphabet. This one seems kind of like a no-brainer, right? But we have to teach the names of the letters and their sounds. We teach phonological awareness, which is building this awareness of the sounds in our language. And finally, we're going to teach print knowledge. Print knowledge and print awareness are this understanding of how print works. Before we move on to the details of each of these skills, I have another opportunity for you to talk to your partners. So, of these skills, which are the 2 best school entry predictors of how well children will learn to read? These are 2 skills that I usually test at the end of preschool or start of kindergarten to see if my students are on track to be good readers. Pause the video and talk with your partner or team and see what you can come up with. Welcome back. The two easiest skills to assess and predict later reading success are phonological awareness and letter knowledge. Specifically, when we think of phonological awareness, we're thinking of the first sounds in words. We know that students who can identify letters, 18 uppercase and 15 lowercase tends to be the threshold, and can recognize the first sounds in words. So when we give them words like baby and ball, they can tell us, oh, the first sound is b, b, b. Those students are on a trajectory for later reading success. So these are the skills that will lead to the understanding of the alphabetic principle, which is critical for later phonics. So let's start, though, with oral language. Why? Because although oral language is more challenging to measure, oral language is the fuel for literacy. We learn to read from speech to print, and oral language really is what we start to build on in order to develop later readers. We can build oral language in a lot of ways. Number one, teach or talk. Just by talking to our students, we can build their language skills. We should model speaking in complete sentences. We should also model sophisticated vocabulary. We don't want to bring our language down. No, we want to ramp it up so that we can take off to later reading success. So use sophisticated words. Tell your students that you need them to stymie their chatter in order to prepare for snack time. Using this sophisticated language in our teacher talk, while also speaking in complete sentences, are going to help our students to build those oral language skills. We can also build oral language through read-alouds. Read-alouds serve a lot of purposes in early literacy. They help us to build not only knowledge of academic sophisticated vocabulary, but they can help our children to learn to speak in complete sentences. If you've ever read Brown Bear, What Do You See? You know that kind of repetitive language in early predictive storybooks can help our students to repeat those sentences and build their oral language. But read-alouds also include wonderful, sophisticated vocabulary that can help our students not only learn about their world, but they can learn about the language in our world. Finally, we want students to talk. Talk is free, and preschool classrooms and preschool playgrounds should be really noisy as children are practicing using the language. It's not enough for them to hear us use language. We want our students to engage in using that language. This is going to be the fuel that makes them better readers. Student talk matters. And as I mentioned before, it's not just about quantity of talk. It's about quality of talk, which brings us to vocabulary and background knowledge. So language, as I mentioned before, it's the fuel for literacy success. And knowledge, though, knowledge leads to this comprehension success. When our kids have background knowledge, it's the Velcro that helps later reading comprehension to work. Velcro makes the new information stick in the brain so our students can connect ideas. But in order to build that knowledge, they have to explore their world. So that means we have to teach them things like science and social studies in units where we're building their knowledge of the world around them. And we teach them sophisticated vocabulary. So as I mentioned, language and vocabulary can often be built through read-alouds, but they can also be built through these units. So an example would be saying to a student, why was the flower drooping? Using that vocabulary word drooping as we talk to them. And then let's explore the causes. So again, using sophisticated vocabulary. As we're building oral language and vocabulary, as I mentioned, read-alouds are lovely. So here we have the dandelion seed. By reading aloud books like this, our students are made aware of the structure of our language too. But the winter wind began to blow. The stronger the wind blew, the tighter the seed hung on until it felt the wind blowing right through it. So here my students are exposed to sophisticated language and sentence structures, building their oral language. But we can also start to build their knowledge of the world around them. This could be part of a unit, for example, on nature and talking about how plants grow. Phonological awareness is all about sound. Students need to tune into the sounds in words to later decode words automatically. The goal is to help students to recognize the individual sounds in their words in kindergarten and beyond. We call that phonemic awareness. But we teach the precursor as we build phonological sensitivity to the sounds and the language around our students. So how do we do this? Well, we can engage in things in read alouds that include alliteration. Alliteration involves repeating the same first sound over and over again. We can bring students' attention to these sounds. So even when I read aloud from the dandelion seed, we talked about words that began with the sound b, b, b. I can do this with silly Sally went to town walking backwards upside down and talk about what's the first sound you hear in silly and Sally. Here I've got another book to show you. I purchased this book because of the title alone, Mavis and Her Marvelous Mooncakes. This particular book by Dar Hosta has a lot of examples of alliteration where the same sound is repeated over again. So I could say to my little friends, Mavis and her marvelous mooncakes. What sound do you hear in Mavis, marvelous, and mooncakes? That's right, the sound is mmm. So intentionally, I can embed this instruction in other components of my day, like read alouds. We also want to help bring our students' attention to books and words that rhyme. We want our kids to sing songs with rhyming. I really like Willoughby Wallaby Woo. Why? Because it's got alliteration, but also it's got some rhyming in it, right? So sing songs with rhyme, read books with rhyme, bring our kids' attention to the words that rhyme, and then help them to later match words that rhyme. Let me give you another example of this. So after reading maybe a nursery rhyme like Hickory Dickory Dock, I can say to my students, Hickory Dickory Dock, the mouse ran up the clock. Dock, clock, those words rhyme. Let's see if we can find another word that rhymes with dock and clock. I have here pan, sock, and fire. Can you point to which card has a word that rhymes with clock, pan, sock, or fire? That's right, it's sock. So be playful, point out these words in the read alouds and nursery rhymes that we're engaging with and the songs we're engaging with. And then you can do an activity like this. This particular one is called Kid Packs Rhyming from Lucy Hart Paulson's book, Building Early Language and Literacy Skills. And you can do activities like this where we then match sounds. So let's see here. I've got sock, rock, and man. Sock, man, and rock. Which two words here rhyme? That's right, sock and rock. Those two words rhyme, they go together. What word rhymes with man? That's pan. That goes together. So we can play with these words, practice with matching and with oral language repetition. Finally, syllables. Syllables are a powerful way to play with language and build phonological sensitivity. Also, later, as our students are decoding multisyllabic words, it doesn't hurt to have that fantastic foundation. So when we play with syllables, clap them, stomp them, and repeat them in longer words. Our month is November. Let's stomp that. November. And talk to our kids, play with longer words to help them break them apart into those individual syllables. Print knowledge is something I'm sure you're pretty familiar with. This is about the function of print in our books. When we teach print knowledge, we can propel our students to later reading success. So Print knowledge brings our kids' attention to the print that we use in the text that we're reading aloud to them. Print knowledge is really effective when it is combined with phonological awareness instruction. So take the opportunity when reading aloud, for example, to not only bring children's attention to the print in the books we're reading, but also the sounds or the phonology in the words in the books that we're reading. We can also teach students how print works in books. So show them the organization of the book, the title, the author, the pages, left to right progression, and point out words in books. On their own, when children will look at books, they will tend to focus their attention on the pictures. And that's not a bad thing. Pictures are helpful for building listening and language comprehension skills. But we also want to bring children's attention to the print in books, not to memorize the words. We don't want them to memorize. That's highly ineffective. But we want them to see that words occur in print and that those words represent the language. So let me give you an example. Here I have a Mo Willems book, Waiting is Not Easy. What I love about books like this is the print is easy to point out. It's big, it's bold, right? And here I can help my students to understand that the print has a function. It's representing the words that this pig is speaking. He's saying, the surprise is a surprise. And here the elephant says, oh. So pointing out the print that's big and bold to help our students understand its use. Also, title, very big and bold, really nice. Author, Mo Willems, pointing that out to our students. That's all part of book and print organization. Alphabet knowledge is also incredibly beneficial for students, and it's really a component of print knowledge. Alphabet knowledge is bringing our students' attention to the letters of the alphabet that they need to recognize in order to be successful. So when we teach students alphabet knowledge, we are not just teaching them that this is the letter A. No, we're pointing out the letter name, its shape, its sounds. A is apple. Give them a target word or a picture, and then give them opportunities to practice writing those letters. Maybe first with skywriting, do some multimodal shaving cream writing, but then also giving them pencils and paper and having students practice writing and creating those letters. Let's look at some other ways that we can explore letters. So here I have my letter card for the letter T with my keyword turtle to help my students recognize the sound t, 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 which is a wonderful sound made behind my teeth, where my tongue taps right behind my teeth. So I can point out the sound, uppercase, or the sound is the same sound we hear at the beginning of turtle. We can look at the uppercase and lowercase t. We can have students have fun making these letters using felt shapes. So here's our uppercase T and our lowercase t before releasing them to practice handwriting of these skills. We can also, which is incredibly effective, point out print in the environment, point out the letters in the environment. So I love reading ABC books. This book is fantastic because I can build print awareness overall. Doodling Dragons. Let's look at the title. It's 2 words, Doodling Dragons. 2 words in that fantastic title. Here's the letter D. We can point out individual letters because they're big and bold. ABC books are great in general, but this one I particularly like because it's big and bold. Here I have a lowercase a and an uppercase A. An A is the sound ah that we hear in apples and ants. But we can also, we also makes the sound A, it says its name, in snakes, 8, grapes. And you know what, boys and girls? A also can sometimes say aw, like in wash the walls. So books are a wonderful way to bring students' attention to the letters. I also really like Chicka Chicka Boom Boom because I can point out to the individual letters as I read the story. Chicka Chicka Boom Boom is another example of how I can bring that phonological awareness in with my print awareness, because here I have the sound ch ch, chicka chicka, ch ch, boom boom, b b, and I can really bring kids' attention to the individual sounds in words as well, pointing out the print, pointing out individual letters. Another activity that we can do to help our students is we can give them a little magnifying, it's like a mirror, but it's really not a mirror. And I can say, magic mirror, mirror, lead the way. Find the letter that I say. Find me the letter P, as in puppy and pat. And the students have to find the letter P. But I could also say, find me the sound. T, t, t. Find me something that has the sound t, t, t. And they can find something in the room that has the sound t, t, t in it. Because again, connecting those activities with print awareness and letter recognition with phonological awareness are incredibly effective. But remember, when we teach the letters, we teach the name, the shape, the target word or picture, the sounds, and then practice letter writing and letter creation. So another opportunity for you to pause and discuss, how do young children learn these skills? Pause the video now and talk with your table partner. Welcome back. Here's the critical thing about these emergent literacy skills. They must be taught. Oral language, phonological awareness, and letter knowledge are extremely predictive of later reading success. It's one of the biggest things we learned from the National Reading Panel or the National Early Literacy Panel. But students have to be taught these skills throughout the day. It's not just one little time of day. These skills are embedded in the things that we do throughout the day. But when I say that they are embedded in the activities that we do throughout the day, I don't want you to lose sight of the fact that this requires a lot of purposeful planning on your part as the teacher. So how do we teach these skills? We teach them through both explicit instruction and intentional play. I'm not saying drill and kill the students on the letters of the alphabet. No, we want to make these activities that we're doing with students playful, but they also need to be explicit and intentional, meaning the teacher is directing students' attention to and teaching about these skills in a very playful and fun way. All of the activities I showed you today were very playful and fun, but they were also intentional. So as we think about developmentally appropriate practice, we know that a hallmark of developmentally appropriate practice is intentionality. Good teachers are intentional in everything they do, setting up the classroom, planning the curriculum, making use of various teaching strategies, assessing children, interacting with them, and working with their families. So as we plan to teach emergent literacy, remember it has to be playful instruction and intentional play. These skills are powerful contributors to reading, and teachers need to be incredibly intentional in the instructional practices that they use to ensure all students learn the emergent literacy skills that will make them later successful readers. It is a science, and like Louisa Moat says, it's rocket science. So let's see, did we accomplish our objectives today? Number one, did we establish a common understanding of literacy from birth to kindergarten entry? I think so. We talked about emergent literacy, those first steps that are going to lead to and propel our students to later reading success. Number two, did we identify the components of emergent literacy and how they contribute to later reading success? Today, we explored phonological awareness, oral language, vocabulary and background knowledge, print awareness, and letter knowledge, all of which are emergent literacy skills that are critical for later reading success. And finally, did we review instructional practices to ensure this future literacy success? Throughout the presentation, I embedded opportunities for you to engage with students to propel their literacy skills and teach them those critical emergent literacy skills. It does require intentionality, as I said, and read alouds are a really wonderful way to do this. In fact, before we go, I'll show you one other activity that you can do with read alouds that I think is often overlooked. And that is to do read alouds using informational text, not just narrative text, to build children's knowledge of the world. So maybe have a text set where we read multiple texts on the same topic. I really liked these books because here I can build print awareness. Tide pools. Look at those two words, tide pools. There's a letter P in this title. Can someone find me the letter P? Nice. What sound do we hear in pools? Pools. Excellent job. So we could talk about those phonological awareness, print knowledge, and letter recognition skills, but we can also build their knowledge of the world by reading multiple texts. This particular text, I pulled out the words that it has in there: tide, explore, anchor, and shore. It's really sophisticated in its language, and it builds our students' knowledge. So our students are building oral language skills, vocabulary skills, and knowledge of the world. So engaging students in text set explorations of the world can be really powerful. We can watch short videos to go along with this. So build students' knowledge. Well, my friends, that brings us to the end of our presentation. I hope you had fun today learning all about emergent literacy. Again, my name is Michelle Elia, and I invite you to reach out if you have any questions about implementing emergent literacy in your preschool classrooms. Thanks so much for your time today.